Okay, so as we stated in class, these notes are for the first lesson of Unit 2. The topics in this lesson are review, which is why we are learning them through a video. On page 23, this is your new signing page, your new unit cover page. Please write down the test date or the review date and the test date for your class. A days in blue, B days in red. And then everyone write down the retake date, please. If you need more time, you can pause this, but I am going to move on. So we are starting today with the vocab, and this is page 27. Some of the important pieces of vocabulary we will use throughout the school year are going to be referenced in this, in this piece of the video. So starting with this outer section, that is referring to the entire math problem you have here, and since there is an equal sign, we call that an equation. The first part of your equation before the equal sign that I just outlined in blue, this is your expression. Remember, an expression is a math problem without an equal sign. Now, looking at our two numbers that we have standing by themselves, we have our positive 5, our plus 5, and our 32. Both of these we refer to as constants. And the way I like to think about that is they are constantly alone because they're numbers by themselves. And now looking at the 3x, the first part of this term, which we'll get to in a second, the 3 is your coefficient. And the x is your variable. So each part of this equation, the 3x, the 5, and the 32, each part we call a term. So the 3x together makes one term. The 5 makes a second term. And the 32 makes a third term. So there are 3 terms in this equation. A term is anything separated by an addition or subtraction sign. So now on page 28, we're going to talk about combining like terms in the distributive property. So some of you in your core math packet, I had you skip the combining like terms section, and we'll revisit that this unit. Combining like terms is when we put together all of our numbers and terms that are the same. So the first thing we're going to do is separate all of our terms by separating them by the same variable and exponent, and then also separating the constants. We will bring the operation with them. So first I like to underline each piece that is going to be able to be combined. So I have negative 5a, 4a, a, and negative a. So I'm going to make a little list over to the left with those terms. Now I see a negative 1, and with that I could only put my 11 and 2 because all of those are constants. And then my third group that I notice are my terms with b's in them. So I have a negative 3b because again we're bringing the operation with it, and a 5b. So I've done step 1 by separating them all. And now I'm going to combine the terms that have the same variable and exponent, which will be much easier now that we did organize them in lists like this. Remember, when we have a variable without a number in front, the number we can put in front of that is a 1. So I have 1a and negative 1a. And now I'm going to add all of my coefficients together. So negative 5 plus 4, negative 1, plus 1 is 0, minus 1 is a negative a. Doing the same with my constants. Negative 1 plus 11 is 10, plus 2 is 12. And now with the terms with b in them, negative 3 plus 5 is 2b. And last but not least, we put them all together in alphabetical order. So I am on step 3. And our constants always go at the end. So starting with the a, because of alphabetical order, I have negative a, plus because it's positive, 2b, plus because it's positive, 12. Constant last. And that's what we get, negative a plus 2b plus 12. Moving on to the distributive property. The first thing we will always do is we will multiply the term that is outside of the parentheses by every term inside the parentheses. So I like to draw arrows. So this 5 we have outside of the parentheses, we're going to be taking inside to each term. So there's 3 terms inside, and it will be multiplied. So 5 times h is just 5h. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 2 is 10, so 10n. We're going to do the same thing with our minus 3. Keep in mind that a minus 3 is the same as a negative 3. So being distributed here is a negative 3 to the h and the 2. So I have negative 3h minus 6. If it helps you to make that plus a negative 3 to make it more obvious to you, you are welcome to do that too. And now step 2 says combine like terms. So I see I have a 5h and a negative 3h. So that gives me 2h. Keeping in mind the alphabetical order, so I'm going to go to my next term with a variable. So I have 10n, and that's positive, so it's plus. And last but not least are my constants. Negative 15 and negative 6 gives me a negative 21. Alphabetical order and constant last. Our last little section for the day is standard form. There is a certain way that we write all of our expressions, and we've kind of already hit on that. But what we want to make sure is that we always put our terms in alphabetical and exponential order. So this is for our variables. And then, like we said before, our constants are always last. So looking at our variables here, we're putting them in exponential order, which means that they are going down, they are decreasing. Alphabetical order, I think we know that's A to Z. So I'm starting with this negative 3x squared because we want our variables to decrease, or sorry, our exponents to decrease. Squared is larger, and alphabetically it comes before y. Next we have our 7x, again it's positive. And now we have our y terms. Okay, so I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit as I was going through this problem. I realized that with the exponential order, it's decreasing for the first variable, and then it's increasing for the second variable. So I like to say that it makes a wave. So it goes higher exponent to lower, and then same, it goes lower exponent to higher, so it's making that wave. So the next variable we would have would actually be our 9y, followed by our negative y squared, and like we said, our constant always goes last, so our plus 4. So alphabetical order, exponents, first one decrease, second one increase, and then constants last. That's our standard form that we'll use throughout the school year, and it will be very prevalent as we move through other units. What I'd like for you to do now that you've finished the notes is I would love for you to take the time to do the as a group and alone problems. The answers are on Google Classroom attached to the post you got this video from. And then complete your homework and check your answers. Have an awesome day and comment if you have questions.